If you're listening to this and you were like me a year ago, just do it. There is never a bad time to prioritize your health. There's never a bad time to invest in yourself. There's never a bad time to feel your healthiest. Welcome to the Glow, Learn, Prosper podcast. I'm really glad you're here. Hi, I'm Laura, and welcome to the Glow, Learn, Prosper podcast. I am so excited to be doing this. Those of you who have been following me over on TikTok or Instagram, but mostly TikTok, have seen me go live on the internet for hours and hours and just yap about my day, yap about my life, yap about my weight loss. And so I figured, why not just turn the yapping into something you can listen to anytime you want? And here we are with a longer form podcast. This is episode 1 of the Glow, Learn, Prosper podcast. And it's going to take me a minute to adjust to the format. Thank you to everyone who is tuning in. Thank you to everyone who has been a cheering voice for the last year of my journey. And today makes 365 days since I did my first injection. Tonight is my 52nd injection of Tirzepatide. And I am honestly really emotional. The last year has changed my life in ways that I never thought were possible. I thought that I was stuck, being unhappy, being overweight, being unhealthy, because I didn't think it was worth investing in myself. I kept putting off the excuses of, oh, I'm going to do this after I have kids. Oh, I'll do this, when I get engaged before I get married. Every time I would think about starting, I would come up with an excuse about why not now. But if you're listening to this and you were like me a year ago, just do it. Just do it. Just take the leap, right? There is never a bad time to prioritize your health. There's never a bad time to invest in yourself. There's never a bad time to feel your healthiest. With that being said, I wanted to take this time and just tell you guys a little bit about me, about my why, about why I started my journey, about where I see my journey going, and what the last year has looked like for me. So thank you all for being here. So like I mentioned, I have been on Tirzepatide for a year now, which is so crazy to me. But in this year, I have found a new confidence in myself. But a year ago, I was sitting in my doctor's office. It was a Friday morning, Friday, May 16th. I was sitting in my doctor's office as he was going over my lab results for my yearly physical. And he basically told me, for someone your age, your labs don't look good. Your cholesterol is way too high. Your liver enzymes don't look great. Your rheumatoid factor is too high. Basically confirming that my metabolic health was stinky dookie oopsie poo poo, basically. And I want to live a healthy life. I want to live an active life. I want to live a long and healthy and prosperous life. And my body was quickly turning into a prison. And I felt like I couldn't be successful and, find that within myself. I had tried intermittent fasting. I had tried the juice diets. I'd tried, working with trainers. I'd tried dietitians. I'd tried Weight Watchers. So many things, every fad diet there was, right? And I just felt stuck. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle against my body every time I would start something. And I was definitely on the train of, you start something, it's going okay for a couple days or a couple weeks even, and then you have one setback. And that one setback makes you feel like you should never have started, like it's not worth trying again, like all the progress is gone. And there's this immense shame and this immense guilt and this immense pain. And it's really easy to give up. And you call it a lack of willpower, call it whatever you want. I'm past being ashamed of that. And I'm really thankful for the Laura who tried all those things and who went through all that, because I feel like it made me a really resilient version of myself. But so my doctor was telling me, we got to get your weight under control. I was 200 lbs, which I understand isn't that obese on the scale of potential, right? But where my body was with my medical history, that was an extremely unhealthy and uncomfortable weight to live at. So I said, okay, doc, what do we do? And he suggested starting a GLP. And I was terrified. I was terrified. I hate needles. I hate shots. I hate injections. All of it scared me. But he basically said, you're at that precipice of, do you want to try a once a week tiny little baby shot, or do you want to quickly slip down the rabbit hole of diabetes, which, I was working in the medical field and in EMS, and I know what diabetes looks like. It's, blood sugar sticks, it's, insulin injections, it's A1C blood draws regularly. It's not a path that I wanted to go down. And so I was like, "You know what, doctor, you're right." And I'm somebody who can do hard things for 5 minutes. I can do a hard thing. We all can. You all can do hard things when you have to. And so I was like, "You know what? Sure, I'll try it." And he went, "Great. Before you change your mind, here's a sample box." And the man handed me a box of Manjaro pens. It was 4 doses of 2.5. And he said, "Do it. Give yourself at least 4 weeks. And if you hate it in 4 weeks, we can have another conversation and reevaluate, but give yourself a full 4 weeks." And I said, "Doc, you know me too well. You know, if I had to go home, think about it, wait for the prescription to be filled at the pharmacy, I would never have picked it up and I would have chickened out." And he's like, "You're right. And also now we can work on getting you a prior authorization. We can work on making sure your insurance will try to cover it." And I was like, "You're right. Okay. All right. Game on. We've got this." So I went home. First of all, I went to my car. I called my mom and I freaked out. She was very supportive, but I was panicking. Got home, put the box in the fridge. And then about every 15, 20 minutes for the rest of the day, I would go back and I would look at the box. And then I'd close the fridge. And then 15 or 20 minutes later, I'd go open the fridge. And I'd stare at the box. And I'd close the fridge. And then 20 minutes later, I'd open the fridge. And I'd stare at the box. And then I'd close the fridge. And it was this vicious cycle back and forth until my other half got home. And he's a paramedic. And I was like, "You need to do my shot for me because you need to stab me because I can't do it myself. I know that I will not be able to." I've heard online that hydration and protein helped you not get the side effects and helped you not get the nausea. And, I was scared of the side effects. So I protein loaded all day. I had water all day. We made a really good protein packed dinner and we sat on the couch and he's like, "All right, you ready?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "Are you ready?" And I went, "Uh-huh." And I immediately grabbed my stomach, which is where I did my first injection, so hard that my nails were leaving half moon marks on my stomach. And I'm sitting there, and as he's, opening the box and reading the instructions and getting the alcohol swab out and doing the ritual of, doing the injection, I'm progressively getting more panicked. And I worked myself up to the point of hysterical sobs. I was incoherent. I was not okay. But I told him before I started panicking, "Hey, I need you to do this for me because if we don't do it tonight, I'm never going to do it. Like I am committed to doing it. I'm terrified, but you need to do this with me." And so, he kept asking to make sure I was sure. And I just kept saying, "Just do it, just do it, just get it over with." And so I'm sitting there sobbing, shaking, having a hard time breathing because I'm panicking, clutching my stomach. He puts the plastic piece up against my stomach, and this is it right here. This is the first pen. So he puts the plastic up against my skin, and I tell him, just clicks the button. And I am panicking so hard that I don't hear the click. I am panicking so hard, I don't hear any of it. And then I feel the plastic come away, and I'm sobbing. And through sobs, I say to him, "No, babe, please, I need you to do this." And he's like, "It's done." And I'm like, "Don't tease me. If you didn't actually do it and you're just telling me that so that you can catch me off guard later, I'm gonna be really mad at you." And sure enough, he did it. And then I promptly went and took a shower to try to soothe my body. I upchecked because I had been that panicked. And, kind of the rest is history. I woke up the next day for the first time ever, didn't want to go to brunch, didn't want to think about food. But I was like, I had a full blown anxiety attack last night. That's fine. It's just a side effect of anxiety. I woke up still not hungry. And I'm like, there's no way the meds are working already. I've been told that some people don't feel anything even in the first month. Monday, I clock into work, and normally I would open up DoorDash and know what I'm ordering for lunch before I even know what my day looks like. And that wasn't the case. And I realized at about 3 p.m. when my boss asked me what I was getting for lunch that I didn't know. And I didn't care that I didn't know. And I was like, "Oh my God, is this Tirzepatide? Or am I having, some sort of mental breakdown? Is this placebo? Because there's no way that it's already working." Monday, not hungry, forced myself to eat. Tuesday, not hungry, still making myself eat intentionally. Wednesday started to feel a little bit hungrier. Thursday, I was like, "Oh, now I realize how quiet the food noise was, Monday, Tuesday." And then come Friday, it's shot day, and I'm still panicking about the needle, but I'm excited to get that silence back. I lost 4.6 pounds my first week. I am considered a GLP-1 hyper-responder, and so my experience will not be everyone's experience, but that was what my first week was like. And after my first week, I still cried a little bit the second time. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't really find it painful or uncomfortable. It was just the mental. I had him do my injection again. We switched sides of the stomach because I was told to rotate your injection sites. And, from there it became this weekly ritual of the panic getting less and less and less and less, and the benefits getting greater and greater and greater. Week 3, I checked in with my doctor and I said, "Doc, I think I can do this." And he said, "Great, your insurance says they won't pay for it." And I was like, "What do you mean my insurance says they won't pay for it?" And he's like, "We're going to keep trying for the prior authorization, but they did approve you for semaglutide." So I ended up switching from Manjaro to Wegovy for 1 week. Hated it. I was one of the unfortunate few who had severe GI side effects from Wegovy and from semaglutide-based medications. So that wasn't an option for me. We went ahead, we readjusted. He gave me another sample box of Tirzepatide. I was like, let's try to find a better option. At which point I was introduced to compounding and compounding pharmacies. He helped me find a couple of questions to ask to, make sure that I was getting a reputable, safe provider. And, one thing led to another. And after a little bit of trial and error, I found Alara, who is my current GLP-1 provider. And the reason that I've been able to continue my journey for a year, for those of you who don't know or who've never heard me talk about Alara is a telehealth provider. It's female founded, female owned, female operated. For the most part, the team is almost exclusively female. And they are the absolute most supportive and uplifting group of humans on the internet. I am so thankful for my community at Alara, for Sophia, the owner, for Kaya, the social media and influencer director, uh, for Mohammed and Ahmed, for, every single person on staff and every single one of my Alara sisters. It's an incredible community, and I'm incredibly thankful to be a part of it. If you are needing to find your GLP provider, let me know. I'd happily introduce you to my provider at Alara. I've had nothing but an incredible experience. And then, we've talked about how I got started, but let's talk about my why, right? I feel like for most people, you see, oh, I'm a mom and I wanted to get healthy for my kids. Oh, I'm, perimenopausal and, my kids are grown and it's time to take care of myself. Or at least those were the stories that I was seeing when I was considering starting. I didn't see a lot of mid to late 20s, not married, not prepping for a wedding, not, you know, no kids, just a cat and some chinchillas, right? I didn't see anyone who looked like me. So that's part of my why for why I started sharing my story. But my why for why I was ready to take my health seriously. I have an arthritis diagnosis. I have a bone tumor condition that hasn't acted up, thankfully, in years, but it did cause some havoc on my body when I was a kid. And then I want to be a mom someday. That has always been an ambition of mine. I have always had that very maternal instinct. And so for me, getting healthy to have a healthy pregnancy and to have healthy children and to raise, them in a healthy way was very important to me. And that's, in my 5-10 year plan. I know the clock is ticking, but that's in my, mid to long-term goal. And, I wanted to make sure my body had enough time to adjust and to get strong and to get healthy and for things to work. And my doctor handed me a box and what are you going to do? You give it a try. You trust the process, you trust your doctor and you try it. So that's kind of my why for the future that I want to have. And then the timing of it all really just boiled down to I was very, very fortunate to have an incredible doctor who is an advocate for these medications. I'm very, very fortunate to have an incredible partner who's willing to help me, an incredible, family support system. And all of those things, created this really perfect environment for me to try something new. And now, as I sit here a year later, my why definitely has transitioned a little bit. It's added some goals. And then my why with social media and why with sharing my story, has evolved. It started out as I just wanted to feel less alone. And, if I could just connect with one other person who was like me, who felt like, oh, I need to wait until after I have kids. Wrong. You don't need to wait. Get healthy for yourself. 2, I need to wait until there's a date that I'm planning, like a wedding. Wrong. Get healthy for yourself. 3, I told myself I wasn't fat enough. Wrong. Obesity comes in all shapes and sizes. My doctor told me my labs were scary and that GLP-1s are going to help treat other things besides just obesity. If you fall into the overweight, obese category, at least with Lara, your BMI has to be above 25 to start the medication journey, which, isn't the highest threshold. And then, it was expensive. I was very unfortunate that my insurance didn't cover it, but I was very lucky to find a reliable GLP provider through a telehealth platform that has great prices. And that really made it so that I could continue my journey. But, that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit about my journey, about my why. And so thank you guys if you've tuned in so far. Welcome to the Glow Learn Prosper podcast. I'm really excited to be able to share more longer form, more rambly content with you guys. This is such a cool opportunity and a leap of faith that I'm taking and entrusting myself to attempt. But I love you guys. Thank you all for being here. You are all beautiful humans. And I hope you have a fabulous Friday. Bye.